It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor?
Hey everybody, this is Tim Josma. This is going to be a bonus episode of Friends Talking Nerdy here. Kim and I did our very best to try and record a new episode this week, but with it being the holiday week with Thanksgiving and everything, we had a lot of plans going on, and ultimately Kim had to go to work, so we were not able to record a new episode, but that's fine. I mean, it is the holiday season and everything, but I did want to make sure that we had some new content out for you this week, so gonna be going solo here, apart from having my cat Phil sleeping here next. Well, not sleeping, he's currently cleaning himself, but he also likes to play with Kim's blanket here at times, so trying to see if he'll play with that for a second. There we go. Alright, so what we're going to do in this bonus episode is talk a little bit about a movie that was just released this past week, one that I strongly encourage everybody to go see, a really, really good movie. It's the new Tom Hanks movie, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Now, one thing to keep in mind about this is that it is not a Mr. Rogers biopic, even though Mr. Rogers is a character in the film. Mr. Rogers is essentially a supporting character in the film because the movie is based on an article that was in Esquire magazine in '98. The name of the writer was Tom Junod. The article name was called "Can You Say Hero?" The basic premise of the story, that Tom Junod is they change his name to a fake name in the movie. Lloyd Vogel is the character name in the movie, but essentially, the premise is a writer for Esquire magazine is sent out on a story to interview Mr. Rogers for a special spread that's going to be about heroes in Esquire magazine. Can you imagine that with the title? And he's cynical. He doesn't think that there's going to be much to this story. He much prefers to be an investigative journalist and whatnot. But the more he interviews Mr. Rogers, and the more Mr. Rogers does his best to try to befriend him, the more he realizes the impact that Mr. Rogers has had throughout the years. The beauty of the film starts with the very first frame, because after the Sony logo, it starts with the intro to Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. You get the opening scenes of the neighborhood with the small little miniature houses and whatnot. You get the very beautiful, familiar music playing. And then the camera pulls in on the brown house that anybody who grew up watching PBS as a kid will know and love. And then Tom Hanks enters as Mr. Rogers singing "A Beautiful Day" in this neighborhood. And my God, Tom Hanks is one of... He will go down when Tom Hanks passes away, and I hope that's a very, very long time ahead of us. He will go down as one of our great actors, because The beauty of his performance in this film is not that he does an impression. No, you don't hire Tom Hanks to do an impression. You can get anybody else to do that. But what he was able to do is capture the essence of Mr. Rogers, and that's what's going to get the tears flowing, you know, when you see this film, because it's uncanny. Again, it's not an impression, but you could just feel Mr. Rogers alive. Now, in the film, I believe I mentioned Mr. Rogers is not the main character. This is not a Mr. Rogers biopic, so he's kind of in the background per se, kind of helping the main character Lloyd go through some issues. Now, the beauty of this film is that it's essentially presented as if it were an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for adults, kind of like if Mr. Rogers were still around and was able to say, "Hey, there are a lot of my neighbors out there have a lot going on in their lives, and what I need to do is make one more episode to tell them it's okay to be upset at people sometimes, but it's the best thing you need to do is to express your feelings." Because in the movie, the magazine writer, you know, is just angry at his father, you know, for valid reasons. I mean, there are times to where people are mad at their parents for whatever reason. I've been mad at my parents many, many times in the past. I know my kids have been mad at me many, many times in the past and currently. But that's a different story there. But what Mr. Rogers did for this magazine writer in the movie and in real life was to ultimately show him that through the power of, you know, just being able to express himself, not through violence, because the magazine writer at the beginning of the film ends up punching his dad at his sister's wedding. In real life, the magazine writer, you know, made it clear to say that the only thing that was not true about that was that it was at his sister's wedding, because his sister did not have a wedding apparently. But he ended up punching his father and whatnot, but he, through Mr. Rogers' help, was able to properly express his feelings, and at the end of the movie get some closure with his father, who in the movie ultimately passed away. I don't know, you know, the full real story with the real magazine writer from Esquire and whatnot. I believe his father may have passed away, but anyway, it's a great film. It is a very feel-good film, but it is not Hallmark Channel movie of the week type of schmaltzy, if that makes sense. Because growing up, I mean, anybody who watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood will appreciate the fact, you know, whether you were young or old, that, you know, he always told the truth. He was able to, on the show, to tackle some really, really deep, dark topics. I mean, like, one of the first episodes that came out was shortly after the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy. And what did he do? He had an episode about assassination. I mean, this is for preschoolers, for goodness sake, but he was able to talk about difficult topics like assassination, like divorce, like a lot of stuff, like the young kid who I believe it was spina bifida or something like that, who came in the wheelchair and was able to, you know, take something that to a young kid may seem scary, a kid that, you know, if you're a kid and you see another kid in a wheelchair with like a neck brace or something like that and braces on his hands, that may seem scary at first, but the beauty of what Mr. Rogers did is that he was able to break it down in simple terms so that we understood, and he asked questions, and he, you know, just encouraged people to be the best they could be. You know, I've been a huge fan of Mr. Rogers since I was a kid. I mean, when, you know, my mother, not a perfect person, I'll be the first to admit that. I mean, I was a mama's boy growing up. I'm a mama's boy right now, but I'm also not naive to, I don't look back on, you know, her time when she was alive with rose-colored glasses. You know, she did a lot of stupid stuff. I mean, everybody does. I certainly have my fair share, but one thing she did really well was that when she realized that she had a deficiency in some way, in terms of helping my sister and I grow up to be the best we could possibly be, what she would do is make sure that we would be connected with the right people to make sure that we were able to get what she couldn't give to us. Like one thing that she did for us that she didn't have to do was make sure that we went to a private school growing up. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, not exactly the most horrible place in the world, but it's the school choices in public school that we had at that particular time in the neighborhood that we lived in were not the best. So we ended up finding a private school because my sister and I ended up it wasn't running away from home, but we kind of walked away from the home we were living at to this playground, and there were, and my sister won't remember this, but there was a group of kids there, and it was a playground next to this school and this church, and we were playing and everything, and then my mother didn't know where the hell we were, so she was running around scared, but she ended up finding us, and was upset at the people for she thought they encouraged us to be there and whatnot, but they were able to talk her down and just say, hey, these kids just showed up and we thought they were part of the group, blah blah blah. But she ended up asking some questions and found out that the school was actually a local private school that had just started up a couple years beforehand, and she even though she worked as a bartender for most of our lives, she was able to scrounge up enough money to make sure that we went to that school and had a much more decent education than we probably would have with the public school. And we ended up meeting some great people along the way, blah blah blah. But when it comes to television, sure, I grew up watching He-Man and G.I. Joe and all that stuff, and of course professional wrestling. That's been a constant in my life for a long time. But one other constant has always been Mr. Rogers, and I remember his last episode too. August 2001. I actually took the day off of work. I had to. I got teared up with the movie. I'm getting teared up now just thinking about it. But, when the movie, when the TV show came out in August 2001, the last episode, like I said, took the day off of work and I just sat home and just watched it and cried happy tears. It was good happy tears because the beauty of Fred Rogers is kind of touched upon in the film. As some people know, he was an ordained minister with the Presbyterian Church, not the most liberal of churches and whatnot, but and while he was always open in interviews and everything and with people about his religious beliefs, the beauty of his show is that he was able to teach the very good aspects of the Christian life, and this is coming from an atheist. There are some good points to Christianity if you read the teachings of Jesus and just Jesus alone, not anything that came afterwards. There's a lot of good meat on the bones, and one thing that Jesus taught was love your neighbor like you would yourself, and if that's not the mission statement to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, I don't know what is. And there's Phil getting in my way. I don't know if he wants to talk or what, but he sees me doing something anyway. And I, like I said, I'm an atheist. I'll be an atheist till I die. But if there is anybody that lived the positive life of what Christianity should be, in my opinion, it was Mr. Rogers, because he truly believed he truly believed in the good in everybody. He truly believed that it was important for people to the thing about Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood overall is that his main focus was about emotional learning growing up. And I know from my experience, my mother was not good at properly expressing her emotions. I'm not good at properly expressing my emotions, and it is something that unfortunately is passed down and whatnot. But when you have a show like that on the air, it does remind you to the importance of being able to discuss stuff like this. And that's the beauty of what you're going to get with this movie right here. An honest story an honest portrayal of what happens when, you know, you stuff your emotions down and you just won't confront them, and how, you know, just letting anger build up and stoking that fire of anger is not healthy overall. It's a lesson I know I need to continually learn, because you know, again, just with how I grew up, with the figures I had, you know, teaching me growing up, you know, just expressing emotions is not easy for me. And, you know, having someone, even if it's a television friend like Mr. Rogers, you know, being able to just slow things down and kind of teach just some basic stuff. Just it's a great reminder, and again, the movie is great to watch. It will have some great moments in it, like Mr. McFeely. Mr. McFeely is in the movie near the beginning of it, and, you know, like the doorbell rings, Mr. Rogers goes to the door, there's Mr. McFeely there, and Mr. McFeely brings a video for him and Mr. Rogers to watch in picture, and you get to see how a magazine is made. You know, the magazine that they're putting together is the Esquire magazine with the Can You Say Hero cover of Mr. Rogers on it. But it was just great being able to see Mr. McFeely again. The neighborhood of make-believe is there. You see King Friday the 13th. You see Lady Elaine. The beauty of Lady Elaine is that's the puppet. I guess originally she was a witch or something like that, but she has the big rosy cheeks, the huge nose and whatnot. Just an ugly doll. But the funny thing is, most people don't realize is that puppet is named after his sister. So it's nowhere on the line of, you know, jokes at my sister's expense that I've done over the years. But it's great to know that Mr. Rogers was able to have a somewhat similar sense of humor. So that was great. You know, and it brought back so many memories. August 2001, his last show was 11 days before September 11th. And September 11th hit, of course, and the world quickly went to hell and, you know, brought us to where we are today. But shortly after September 11th, Mr. Rogers went on the air again. It wasn't a full episode or anything like that, but he did have some words of encouragement for his audience. And it's powerful then. It was powerful then, and it's powerful now. So, you know, because this is a bonus episode, I will include that little clip here. It's not going to be long.
You know, it happens so often. I walk down the street and someone 20 or 30 or 40 years old will come up to me and say, "You are Mr. Rogers, aren't you?" And then they tell me about growing up with the neighborhood and how they're passing on to the children they know what they found to be important in our television work. Like expressing their feelings through music and art and dance and sports and drama and computers and writing, and invariably we end our little time together with a hug. I'm just so proud of all of you who have grown up with us, and I know how tough it is some days to look with hope and confidence on the months and years ahead. But I would like to tell you what I often told you when you were much younger. I like you just the way you are. And what's more, I'm so grateful to you for helping the children in your life to know that you'll do everything you can to keep them safe and to help them express their feelings in ways that will bring healing in many different neighborhoods. It's such a good feeling to know that we're lifelong friends.
And again, it's wow, the beauty of that man. Just he was always honest and genuine. Kids can see a bullshit artist a mile away. I think of the Simpsons a lot. In this regard, as an example, like when Lisa will say something profound, and then Homer will pat her on the head and go, "Yes, honey, that's a puppy." Kids can sense when adults do that to them, and when you have a figure like a Mr. Rogers, or and there are plenty of people like Mr. Rogers in real life that kids encounter, when you have someone that is genuine, that is able to respect a kid by talking to them in their own terms, of course, so the kid will understand, but still give them that respect of talking to them in a truthful way, kids will respond. And A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is one hell of a film. Really, really encourage you all to head to the theaters and give this a shot. There's also a great documentary that was released last year, because I saw this movie and it made me tear up so much. I ended up going to Amazon and buying it. It was on sale for $7.99. The documentary is called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And had some great anecdotes in it. Like, you would never think Mr. Rogers would be okay with this, but apparently there was a stagehand that worked on the show. And what he would love to do is, like, if somebody brought a camera to work, he and somebody else, they would take that camera and then, would take a picture of his ass. Well, Mr. Rogers, as established in the film too, loved to take pictures of people. And, one day he brought his camera to the set, and that stagehand was able to get a picture of his ass on Mr. Rogers' camera. But Mr. Rogers didn't sell it for many, many months. And the guy, ended up just forgetting about it, because at first he thought, oh, wait, am I going to be in trouble or something like that? Because he thought it was a goof, but then he didn't hear anything, and blah, blah, blah. Many months pass. They get to the Christmas party that they traditionally had in the studios. And wouldn't you know it, Mr. Rogers took that photo of that guy showing his ass and blew it up to poster size, which was funny as hell to me. I loved it. Go out of your way to watch A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and also Won't You Be My Neighbor? Just, if there is a voice that this country needs today, that needs to hear today, it is the voice of Mr. Rogers. And when you have people like the folks at Fox News and the Daily Caller ripping into Mr. Rogers for, not being masculine enough or something like that, he must have done something right, because, he believed that through the power of television, that's another thing too that the documentary was able to expound upon. He was not a fan of television at all. When he first, I guess the first time he turned on a television, he talked about watching a show where people were throwing pies in each other's faces, and he was aghast at that. Now, me with my humor, I would love that, but that's a different story. But he wanted to use television as a force for good. And again, as too often you see folks like a Kirk Cameron or people pretending to be pious, pretending to be Christian, but what they do is try to get stuff canceled. Like, I'll bring up another wrestling example. In the 2000s, you had the Parents Television Council that would, routinely give scorecards for TV shows. And what they did in the late 90s, early 2000s was actually try to get the advertisers to pull their advertising from WWE programming, which was absolutely ridiculous. I will not... it makes me bristle to think that you would have people looking to use their energies to take something away instead of creating something. I have more respect for somebody that says, I don't like that, so what I'm going to do is create something new that will be better, that will be the opposite of that will be a positive force for change. Like the Kirk Cameron example, his sister Candace Cameron, I from what I understand, is just as religious as her brother, but you don't hear her speak out on that. You just see her on Fuller House. You see her, I guess she does Hallmark movies and whatnot, and it's great that she does that. And the fact that Mr. Rogers was able to take a medium that he did not like upon first viewing and find a way to be able to speak to children throughout the years is an amazing thing, and shows just what the power of television can do for good. One other thing too that I found interesting in the documentary was, and they touched upon it in the movie, is that what I didn't realize is that in the mid-70s, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood stopped production. He thought that he had enough material in the can that it could just be on loop, and then he can go on to different projects. So for a while, he had a show for adults. But there was one person that brought him back to the neighborhood, and that person was Superman. Now, why would I say that? It was 1978, and he came across an article talking about a young kid that hurt himself by strapping a towel around his neck and jumping out a window, thinking he could fly. And what he ended up doing was starting production on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood again, and came back with a whole week of episodes talking about the importance of for young kids of realizing just characters like superheroes, that they are fictional characters, and appreciating them for the good feelings they can bring in you, because there's nothing like the power of a good story. I mean, you're talking to a guy with a Superman tattoo on his arm, so I certainly love me some superheroes, but it was important for young kids to hear this, because in the 70s, in the late 70s, of course, that's when the first Christopher Reeve movie hit, but that was not an isolated incident. I mean, if you look at the Superman documentary that came out, Look Up in the Sky, that came out after the Brandon Routh Superman Returns movie, you had people like Gene Simmons talk about, doing the same thing when he was a kid. When the Superman TV show in the 50s hit, you had similar incidents of kids thinking they could fly. The Superman radio show, the serials, the Max Fleischer cartoons. So Superman brought Mr. Rogers back to the neighborhood, and then he was able to keep the show going all the way until August of 2001. But anyway, I think I've rambled enough here. Like I said, this is just a special bonus episode. We did want to have some content out today. We will be back next week with our regularly scheduled programming, where excuse me, the album focus that we are going to do will be for the Tijuana Sweethearts album, Under the Gun. But I just, again, wanted to spend a few minutes talking about this wonderful, wonderful movie. A lot of the stuff I like. I mean, I like, trashy action movies, trashy music, just stuff that, is not going to be considered high art or anything like that. But when you see something this beautiful, this simple, in a lot of ways, this movie did remind me of it brought me back to the feelings I felt when I watched the movie from 2011, the Jason Segel movie The Muppets. The reason I say that is that both of these films were able to use nostalgia in a way that honored its subject. Then 2011, nostalgia was used to essentially praise everything that the Muppet Show did for kids of my generation. And what this movie will do for you is give you essentially a celebration of everything that Mr. Rogers was able to accomplish. He was a good man. He was a man who made mistakes like anybody else, but he was a good man. And, it wouldn't hurt anybody to try to emulate a little bit of Mr. Rogers in their life on a daily basis. So with that, we will be back next week. But there's one thing as well that I wanted to talk about before we end here, and that's a question that Mr. Rogers would often ask. So, since we're talking about him today, I did want to kind of bring it up in the form of a question to the audience here. And, you know, obviously we don't have the biggest audience in the world. I never pretended we do or whatnot, but I value anybody that listens, even my sister. Joke, of course. But what I want to do is ask this question and get some feedback from you guys. So the question is, who is someone that helped you become who you are? Those who cared about you and wanted what was best for you in your life. He would commonly ask that. I know there was a famous time he said that. There was an awards ceremony called the TV Hall of Fame in the late 90s where he asked that, and he, you know, said, you know, take 10 seconds or 30 seconds or something like that and think about that. And he actually timed it, but, you know, people in the audience started crying and whatnot. And when I thought about that question, you know, I thought of people like my friend Stephanie Hine, who earlier this year sadly passed away from uterine cancer. But she is someone that did help me get to this point in my life. For the longest time, I've never been, like I said, I've never been the best at expressing my emotions, but having such a positive force in my life and Stephanie for well over a decade, I mean, just someone who always had a positive outlook on life, no matter what life dealt her, made it even to this day makes me take pause anytime I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed. It makes me take a deep breath and just makes me appreciate what I have. And I thank her for that, you know. It's sad that she's gone. You know, I wish she was here. I know her husband, Thomas, more than anybody in this world wishes she was here. But I know she would also be happy that, you know, she had such a profound influence on my life, on his life, on her friends and family's life, you know. Like I, you know, said before, you know, we had a strong relationship. I consider her a sister from another mister, but thanks to technology, you know, we were able to have this relationship without ever meeting in person, but, you know, she was still that much of an influence on me. So that's who I thought of when I thought of that question. So again, the question is, who is someone that helped you become who you are, those who cared about you and wanted what was best for you in your life? So think about that. Take some time to think about that if you listen to this show, and send me a response. I'm on Twitter. You can find me at FTNerdy. You can also find my co-host Kim at Kim the Geek, and send us your response. I want to hear what you have to say, because I think Mr. Rogers would want us. I mean, I know with one thing the documentary does talk about is that, you know, he was appreciative of what Eddie Murphy did with Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, a sketch that he had when he was on Saturday Night Live, you know, and he would be the first to say that the humor didn't always strike a chord with him, but he knew that Eddie Murphy's, that sketch was Eddie Murphy's way of showing his love. He saw that it was a way for him to do something positive, but kind of flip it a little bit. And, you know, if you've heard our show on any sort of a consistent basis, you know that, you know, we're not a show for kids in any way, shape, or form. We never pretend to be, but in the vein of Mr. Rogers, why not do something a little positive, even if it's just taking a moment to encourage, you know, the listeners that we do have to think. So think about that. And if you do have a response, get back to us. At FTNerdy is my Twitter handle. At Kim the Geek is Kim's Twitter handle. And just let us know that response. And remember,
it's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside, and when you wake up ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling. The feeling, you know, that I'll be back when the day is new, and I'll have more ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. You always make each day such a special day. You know how? By just your being you. Only one person in the whole world like you. That's you yourself. I'll be back next time. Bye-bye.